Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo and back in Tiguidou Zoo. So as you've seen from that little intro and the title and the thumbnail, we are working on an exciting new section. So this is happening right next to Seal Beach. Here you see me starting the speed build with some adaptations to Seal Beach. If you don't know what Seal Beach is where Tiguidou began. Well, so it was a kind of a very aquatic themed area in Tiguidou for the grey seals, and we're working right next to that because we've got to that point. This was the very first thing I ever built, Seal Beach, and now we are finally getting to a point where we have bridged the gap from where I placed this right at the bottom of the hill. All the way back up to the entrance. We've kind of got to this one side. This is the bit that's going to complete this one side of the zoo. So there is loads to see. I have decided, in attempting to edit this, I have ended up splitting it into at least 2 episodes because it's going to be a pretty extensive area. Lots of different little inspiration points. It is both home to the African penguin and the new little penguin that we got in the latest DLC, the Oceania DLC. And yeah, like there's a whole bunch of different ideas. Like there was a couple of little ideas that inspired me for this. So I don't know if it's the blue penguin or the little penguin, but I have been to a place in Australia called Phillip Island, and there was a colony of penguins living there just off of the beach, and they come up and kind of nest on the beach, and the conservation area that they kind of live in on Phillip Island has got this kind of protected nesting section for them, but all of these really cool little gangways and things that people can walk around, and the penguins walk underneath you. So I thought I'd do a series of kind of pools here, and here you can see me like putting a little bit of a waterfall feature in between a higher pool and a lower pool, but also try and use that idea of like guests being able to view the penguins from all sorts of crazy different angles. So underwater is the obvious one. I've incorporated the new underwater dome or viewing dome into this habitat in a number of places, and you'll see me go through that speed build in the speed build. But also, yeah, I wanted to make sure that there's like loads of different ways for the guests to view the penguins, but not be able to sort of particularly be able to look at each other. So there's like 5 or 6 different viewpoints in this habitat, including things that are like penguins walking underneath you. I think there's going to be, maybe even in the future, a bit where penguins walk over the top of you. And they obviously can be viewed from underwater as well. So what we have got is I've got 3 pools here that I've created. So this first one that you see, I've put this little bridge way back there, is an underwater viewing section that is close to the main building. If you've been watching me for a while, you'll know that there is a viewing point. As you look at the inside section of the macaque monkeys, there is a viewing point that looks down this way, and I placed a statue there that had a penguin in it a while ago. And someone very candidly in the comments section suggested that I make a splash pad for penguins, like a big pool feature that you could look out for. And that was that had been like the picture I had in my head when I created that window. You can sort of see it in the background there. That building that we just saw briefly in the background there is the macaque, where the macaques live. So that's kind of what I've done. So there is like this kind of inferred splash pad section where the guests could go and kind of like be around some fountains and some things, which you would have seen just at the intro there. And then there's this first pool, and this first pool has a viewing section and this bridge. So this bridge allows the keeper to get to multiple locations within the habitat. So you'll be able to cross over to that far section and service this area, and then also get all the way around to fill up the enrichment feeders and that sort of thing. So as ever, I wanted to make these kind of as realistic as possible, so I lined it all out in concrete, and then I have created a pretty simple actually repeating pattern of faux rocks I thought about the idea of just what I usually do, which is create, a completely custom underwater area, which is what I did in Seal Beach. But in this one, I thought I want to keep it simpler. I'm going to use just a repeating pattern of those 3 faux rocks and see if I can get away with that, and use this textured this piece that we got in the conservation patch, because it kind of looks like it kind of looks a bit like sand, I guess, and it looks like the sort of thing. It's almost like faux sand texture once you give it that color. So I thought actually that works perfectly just to have as like the ground texture for these pools. So this first one you can see is quite deep and there's quite a lot of rocks in there. I did originally play around with the idea of having the underwater feeder in here, and actually discovered to my delight, because I had not forgotten that they had done this, that they have changed. They've changed the requirement, the depth requirement for water for diving behaviours from like 4 meters or something to something like 2 meters. So like I didn't have to have this massive, great big deep pool in here, which is really cool. So just giving this a bit of a concrete line. You can see one of the penguins in the background there playing with a disco ball. They've got some really good interactions, actually. I haven't used any of the penguins before, other than the kind of Antarctic diorama I did for the king penguins. So yeah, getting to play with these is really cool. And I actually kept the details fairly light inside the habitat, although maybe not that light compared to some of my other builds. It's still pretty detailed. So here's me just creating this little drain. I wanted to make sure there was like water features and plenty of things that sold the aesthetic of it being underwater, because I wanted the water to be fairly clear. One little trick is that you can do is, if you've got water that you want to have fairly clear, make sure that you put in something like that. So there's like little bubbles, just to reconfirm the visual that it's underwater again. So this is the 3rd pool, and this pool came from the idea that there would be, I had this picture in my head of kids being able to walk on glass with penguins underneath them, swimming around underneath them. That was the picture. I knew it wasn't ever going to work like that in the game, because obviously we have solid paths, we can't have transparent paths, we can't have null paths that kind of, you could just, like in Prehistoric Kingdom, you can kind of create your own traversable areas. You can't do that in Planet Zoo. So yeah, I wanted to have this at least implied area that you could have that experience, so the penguins would swim underneath you. So I've just put a little set of steps. There's a walkway there that's passing from the upper viewing areas of Seal Beach to this section. So I thought, okay, well let's just make a glass floor, and then I can make it look like you could step into it or step down to it from the pathway. So I'm putting this section in, and had completely forgotten that the way that the swimming mechanics works in the game is, unless you have, and this is something I discovered ages ago in Seal Beach and forgotten about it, is unless an animal can swim on the surface of the water, or there is somewhere for them to dive under and pass through to. So like if you have something that's blocking the surface of the water and they can dive down and swim through and get to the other side, they will do it. If like I've just done here, where you just block the surface of the water and there's nowhere for them to go, they won't dive down under that section. So I didn't remember this until I built this structure. So you can see me here putting this all in, and you'll see at some point it jumps to a point where it steps up from that pathway and it's higher, which I think still works okay. Not as great as I wanted it to be, because I wanted it to feel like the animals were like right underneath you, but you just can't do that in the game. The mechanics don't let you do that. So hey ho, the mechanics are it's one of those little creative challenges, right? One of those occasional little creative challenges that you have to work your way around. So this section, this is the middle pool. So this is what you saw in the intro, and this is where the viewing domes are going to be. So you'll see it was really deep originally, and then I thought it doesn't actually really need to be that deep because I now know that they'll dive regardless. So I have put 3 domes in here, and then the next thing, you'll see me doing now is that, unlike in the Tasmanian devil habitat, I decided I want to sell the idea of it being underground. So I put a path down. I still want to hide that ugly entrance away as much as possible, but make it a bit more like that you have to go down in order to enter into that. Because it is underwater, it's under the pool, so it makes sense that there's steps down to it. I have a few ideas about what I might do with this particular section. I might incorporate into a building, I'm not sure. What we're not going to see in this episode is actually the penguin house. So where the penguins go to sleep isn't going to be in here. There's tons of stuff in here, tons of different viewing areas. There's guest viewing areas coming out of the wazoo here. But so rather than having like an hour-long speed build episode, I thought I'd keep it a bit shorter and do it as a 2-part. So here I am putting the rocks in the second section. You can see there in fact, at this point, I still have steps down in that glass section up there. It's not going to work, Tobes. You're going to have to fix it. So here's me continuing this theme of this new kind of sandy texture. And this was going to be where I have the underwater feeder, because I thought that would be cool, looking down through the glass under your feet, and then you can see the underwater feeder with them diving down to it and stuff. So I'm kind of finishing off these viewing areas. This is a similar sort of style that I've done for like the tapirs and stuff, using this same rock texture, this kind of column-y thing, and I think it is one of the advantages of having a smaller zoo, actually, is that it's quite easy to kind of keep it consistently themed, unlike in Zimba, where because it's a much bigger zoo, I've kind of got areas like different sort of zones in the zoo. In Tiguidou, because it's much smaller and it's a much smaller kind of feel, and there's no like elephants and lions and that sort of thing, it's all like these cozy kind of roadside animals. It feels okay to do like a common theming, and there are differences between some of the areas, but there's usually things that make it all feel consistent, like some textures and some logs and things. It's not ever going to suddenly become like super modern in this zoo, because it's always kind of keeping that kind of rustic Canadian feel going. So this looks weird because there's no water in there at the moment, but this is here's my these things take some crafting around, because they're like a really cool mechanic, but they do have like quite themselves, even the domes have quite a big blocky objects, and I spent ages, I've cut all of it out of the video, but trying to make sure there wasn't too many things like clipping into the dome, because you can have things sticking into where the guests are and stuff. So I hid a lot of that stuff away. So you can see I've got the feeder in, and actually just a little pause here to make sure that they will do it. I had loads of trouble getting the underwater feeder to work. It seemed like anything I put anywhere near it, any other objects, it just said it was inaccessible. So I'm quite sure whether that was just a foible of something I was doing or what. I think it was quite a tight space, so that might just be all it is. I wanted to use this this under stair section. I think I said this in the previous video, but space is of a premium in Tiguidou, and the whole aesthetic is everything is jammed in, and really there's no waste of space anywhere. So I ended up putting a toilet block in here, and actually I don't think I show this in the speed build, but you'll see it in the tour when I eventually finish this section. There is a implied exhibit under the other side, opposite this toilet, and this is just getting I'm starting to get towards Seal Beach here, and so there's a bunch of things that I need to kind of continue the theming and bring these things together. One of the things I have noticed that I do want to make sure I do is go back and just probably update some of the textures and mechanics that I've used in or the objects and the textures that I've used in Seal Beach, just to probably bring it up to like scratch with where I am now, because I think I'm a lot better builder than I was when I did that. It was really good, like I really liked it, but there's a number of things that I've done that are like just massively piece inefficient in that. I'm never that bothered about this, but as I'm starting to get to the end of this zoo, yeah, it's starting to get a little bit more laggy. It's weird actually. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like since the last patch, I never had any problem with any real performance issues until this last patch has arrived. And it's strange because it's nothing, there's no like, it doesn't feel like there's FPS problems. It just feels like the camera doesn't move very smoothly. So like some of the cinematics, in order to get the cinematics for this video, I've had to delete everything else out of the zoo, basically pretty much everything out of the zoo, take all of the animals out, take all of the staff members. I think it's something to do with, I don't know, it's something to do with something they've introduced in this last patch. And yeah, I've got a 4090 GPU, so I don't think it's a performance issue that I don't think it's suddenly, you wouldn't like suddenly hit a wall. It would just, steadily deteriorate with performance. And I haven't really seen much of a deterioration in performance. And then suddenly when this last patch dropped, or this DLC dropped, just a major change to my my overall experience. When I move the camera in a cinematic or in a pan, it really lags. It like stutters. So yeah, hopefully we'll get that fixed at some point, because it will be really cool, because I'm not have to delete half the zoo in order to take a cinematic. So here I am adding yet another viewpoint. So this is all like implied, using some of these new pieces actually, some of these Oceania pieces, the like textures that we get, the wooden textures in particular, are really great. So I wanted this kind of this viewing spot. This is all where the penguins will pass underneath you. To come from what will eventually be the penguin house, they have to come underneath this little viewing shelter. So again, I've got some little glass viewing points that you could look down from. The keeper actually comes into the habitat underneath this bridge as well. But it's one of those things is actually, once you kind of blend all these sorts of things in, you don't really notice that there's a bridge there. Once you've kind of filled all the spaces in, it kind of starts to feel a bit seamless. So here's my kind of attempt to hide away, as I said, that underground section. I may well come back and update this bit in order to incorporate it into a building, but I think for now I just decided to give it a bit of a feel like it was going to be something that you were having to queue for, that sort of thing. I end up putting a staff member down here just to make it look like there's some sort of queuing system going on. Because that would make sense, right? Because there's only like a few places you can go. There's only like a couple of domes, so only a few people could be in the domes at the same time. So you would need some system of someone saying that it's kind of ready for you to enter or not. Using some of these fence pieces, it's all a bit kind of janky. It feels a bit kind of rusticy, but I think that was kind of the aesthetic. I didn't want to go too far into the beach theme. So here is actually, as I mentioned earlier, bringing in some of the visual theming that I've used in other places in Tiguidou. So you've seen this little color palette with these little textures and things in and around the tapirs and that sort of stuff. So I thought I'd continue that in here. Most of the biome for Tiguidou is like Canadian taiga sort of region. So it's all lots of ferns and that sort of thing. So they continue in that really, and that actually works really well with the Oceania stuff. Again, as always, I've probably taken quite a lot of liberties with what foliage are allowed inside the habitat, because again, I never really feel like it makes a lot of sense to not just use primarily native foliage inside the habitat. Like, even though this is an animal that's Australian, I'm building a zoo in Canada. There's not going to be a lot of stuff that's going to live no kind of tropical foliage from Australia is going to live in Canadian taiga region. So unless it's inside, so I kind of took a bit of liberty of that. Just trying to address this viewing spot now. So you saw me putting the canoes in. That was an excuse to hide some lights up in there, putting some ropes in. Just to give it a bit of dressing, like not to go too far, not to like super Disney-fy this too much. What am I looking for here? I think I'm looking for the cargo nets. For some reason, I can never find these things when I'm looking for them. I don't know if they're actually even called cargo net. I think they are called cargo nets, but I keep typing nets and not finding them. It is one of those things actually that's becoming more and more of a. I mean, it's the awesomest thing to have so many different options of items that you can get in a game like this, and so much creative freedom for choice. And obviously I use the favourites and stuff, but it is definitely starting to get to a point where you're looking for something, you're like, what's that thing called? You type it in and you get 100 results back. It becomes a bit of a challenge. So I use the favourites quite a lot. I wanted to make sure that this, even though I know that I can't get guests on top of that glass, I'm using the free build mod, so it does let me place benches and bins and stuff on top of those. It's one of those things actually. I don't use any other mods, but one of the things that I have accepted that I will let myself use mods for, in particular free build, and only free build actually at the moment, is that if I can do it in the game, but it's a pain to do it, then if I can get a mod that will make that easier, then I'm accepting that I will use a mod for doing it, if that makes sense. So like the fact that I know I could actually technically put a bin and a bench on that glass by putting a path up there and then placing the bench and the bin and deleting the path, that would work. So that's the sort of thing I'm like weirdly kind of making an exception that mods will let me do. Same with making narrow paths and all that sort of thing, and sculpting around terrain, sculpting around paths and stuff like that. If I can do it in the game and the mod will let me do it easier, then I'm accepting that we'll do it. So another little beach spot. So this is a little viewing point. Again, there's loads of I really enjoyed actually about this habitat is there's lots of different options for the penguins to go, so they can be kind of all over the place here. You see them in the background there toddling around, and you'll see, as I've done when we get to the second episode, you'll see like where I've got some implied sort of shelter boxes for them and stuff. So there's loads of places where guests can see them, and loads of different interesting little spots. This is one of the advantages. I think I've said this before as well. Like, I really enjoy the small animals, and I think I really enjoy using the small animals in the game, because you just get they've got so much more option for kind of where they can like traverse to, and they'll climb up on that rocks, and they'll climb over all the things that you can create. And so you just end up with like penguins in all sorts of places, and guests viewing them in all sorts of different places, and lots more. It just feels way richer and more interactive with the smaller animals. So this is one of the new textures actually, the path texture, and I ended up putting it in there, having played around with a bunch of things. I had the gravel down, I had the wood chip in there as well, and I think it's supposed to be like a volcanic rock, but it really worked well in that spot there, and I think I use it a bit more, and I start to blend in some of my rubble pieces in as well. So yet another viewing area going in. This is using the what is this called? This is an enrichment item, isn't it? I can never remember what this is called. It's like the jetty dock thing, because it's got a really cool texture. Trying to put in a pathway for guests to go in there. And again, this is just all about really like having lots of options for guests to get close to the animals and to view the animals. But you can see that the viewpoint that the guests have here isn't looking at other guests. It's looking at the habitat from a different angle. I know you can see at the moment there's an open glass section at the back. That isn't going to be there later on. So another little shelter building. This one's a bit smaller, and the penguins themselves walk right past the front of that glass, and they will play with that duck and all sorts of things. So yeah, just another little cute spot. I have to say, I feel like I say this every time I build a habitat for an animal, but I feel like this is probably one of my favourite habitats, and these are one of my favourite animals so far. And actually, I don't do this very often, but I am getting more into the habit of making a few kind of theming decisions. So this is going to be like a little sign that I'm creating for this whole area that introduces you to it. Again, continuing some of that theming aesthetic, so it blends in with the tapir habitat. I'm actually really excited for you guys to see this one. I know, and I apologise, you're not going to see it until as a tour and in context until at least the next episode. But I appreciate your patience. I know it's been, again, a little bit of a gap between the last episodes. And it is one of those things that's like, yeah, as someone that's making content and videos that, like, the longer you leave it after the DLC, the less people get watching it. But I have to say, I've got to a really good place with making content now where I feel like, honestly, anybody that's watching is just a bonus, because I'm actually really loving playing the game. I'm considering a few other things to play at the moment. But yeah, I'm getting to a place where I really, really love both the zoos that I've got. And it took me a while to get to, especially with Zimba, it took me a while to get to a place where I was really enjoying it, and I got a bit stagnant on it. But some of the animals we've had recently have really inspired me again, and getting into the habit of kind of creating these habitats where it just feels rich and lush, and like I can imagine myself being there and loving it, just really helps kind of keep me going. And so I appreciate everybody's patience. I know people that make videos usually think they're way more interesting than their viewers do. So like, I don't have any real like, I don't really have any expectations. As I said, I appreciate you watching. If you're still 25 minutes into a video listening to me rambling on watching, then I really appreciate you. So you were coming up to the end, putting them some decoration in, last bit of foliage. You can really starting to come together now. And there's a little spot where we see the keeper coming in, so you can actually see him cross the bridge. He does dip into the water a little bit there. But yeah, you can see it start to work. I'm creating a little sign introducing this section, so using the amazing Ricey's font here for the kind of penguin point sign. I think I use one of Ricey's. If you don't know who Ricey is, like, Ricey's the queen of all fonts. In fact, there's quite a lot of really good fonts on the workshop now. This one from Wyatt Andrews as well is really useful. I've not actually used this one before, but slightly different aesthetic. Getting these kind of medium-sized fonts is often quite a challenge, so appreciate anyone that's spent the time and that put the effort into creating a font is a godsend to the rest of us. So appreciate you guys doing that. So yeah, just putting a bit of more detail in this. Wanted to make sure that I had it feel like it stands out sufficiently from the background. So it's going in, put a bit more of a continuation of this wood texture and this theming around it, just to blend it all in. You can sort of see how it's starting to blend in. See the background there, we've got the tapir habitat. It feels like it's all kind of coming together a bit more, and I think we're nearly there. So in the next one, it will be the penguin house, and the other side of that bridge needs work as well, and there's a couple of other viewpoints for guests and things. So thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate you guys watching. Do let me know how much you like this one, if you like this one or you don't like this one. All feedback is useful, even if it's just for like the algorithm and all that good stuff. And I have got so many episodes that I'm kind of halfway through. So yeah, it may well be a kiwi, it may well even be an elephant in the next one in Zimba, or it might be a continuation of Penguin Point. I think it will probably be a continuation of Penguin Point because I've done a bunch of that. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Toves, and I will catch you on the next one. Take it easy, peeps.